Hi THEO 1003! Welcome to your next video, Introduction to Biblical Greek at the University of Nottingham. In this video, we're going over your test for Chapter 13 in Duff. It was your first take-home test, and because it was take-home and you had access to all your resources, I made it harder than it normally would have been. And because you could just look up all the words, so I had to make it a bit more challenging. And you did pretty well. And the good news is, what you may not know, is that your final exam is not going to be any harder than the translation you just did. So what was challenging about it? One, it was a bit longer than your normal translations. It was like 4 sentences long. Two, it really showed you about what translation is really like from ancient texts, because the word order was not necessarily what you would expect, and you had to supply some words that weren't in the Greek in order to make it make sense in the English, and you actually had some decisions where it could go more than one way. For example, you had some words that could be either nominative or accusative, and you had to make some decisions, or you had words that were adjectives, but there was no noun they were describing, so you had to kind of also supply the noun based on the gender and number of the adjective. So, for all those reasons, I'm very proud of how you did on your test. But as you asked me to go over the translation with you, we're going to do that in this video. Here is the passage you had. Well, it's not really a passage. I kind of made it up. I Frankensteined it from a number of things. I'm going to read it. Bear with me. I'm reading backwards, so I'm going to go slowly. Pas entoskate nous ergazetai ponera. Pas entoskate nous ergazetai ponera. Pas de nous epito ore kaire. Pas de nous epito ore kaire. Tis dexatai ta eleos to basileos? Question mark. Tis dexatai ta eleos to basileos. Estai thlipsis panti to agatho kai to kako. Not sure what happened with my printer, but we're all working from home, so these things happen. So estai thlipsis panti to agatho kai to kako. And you guys gave me all kinds of different translations, and many of them were right, even though they were different, or partially right. So here's the translation, or one of the translations that I got. We'll just see it in the English. So every mind, that was kind of, I don't know why you had trouble with this, but mind, every mind in the darkness works evil. And then I supplied things, because that adjective evil was actually neuter and plural. So, but you could just leave things out. You could say every mind in the darkness works evil, or evils, because it was plural. But every mind on the mountain rejoices. That could be mountain or it could be hill, but every mind on the hill rejoices doesn't seem like it was what the alleged author meant. So every mind on the mountain rejoices. Who will receive the mercy of the king? One possible way this could go is there will be suffering for everyone, for the good and for the bad. Or it could also go suffering will be for everyone, for the good ones and the bad one, I guess, because those are singular. Anyway, let's look more closely. So that's what I got, but how did I get it? Let's go word for word. Sorry. Well, why am I trying to hold them all up at once? Bah. Is it see-through? No, okay. So pass is every. And then every what? If there's a noun in the nominative in here, it's going to be, and it matches, it's going to be that. But if there's no noun, then you're going to have to supply it. So it would be like every one. But looking along here, aha, there is totally a noun in the nominative. And it does match pass and nous in case, number, and gender. Therefore, every goes with mind. So every mind. But there's all the stuff in between it. Every in the darkness mind, or every mind in the darkness, works evil. But because that's plural and it's neuter, I put evil things. So every mind in the darkness works evil things. Past de, that de is a gentle way of saying but. It's not like alla, like a really strong but. In fact, some people don't even translate it. They just see it as a way of Greek telling us it's a new sentence. But it does mean but. So it's a post-positive word, which means it's afraid to start a sentence, so you can pop it to the beginning because it's meant to be translated at the beginning. But every mind, it's the same thing here. You look to see if there's a noun that matches pass, and there is, nous. So, but every mind, on the mountain, epi to ore, kaire, rejoices. So every mind on the mountain rejoices. Next sentence starts with tis. It's got an accent. So it's a question. As soon as you see tis with an accent, it's one of the question words. It doesn't mean someone or something. It means who, or which, or what. So looking ahead, you see, aha, there is a question mark in this sentence. This is definitely a question. So we don't know if it's who or which or what, but we'll read the rest of it and see. Who, which, or what will receive, it's in the future, from decamai, it's a deponent verb. Who will receive the mercy of the king? That's how that one gets translated. Estai, oh, Sweet Pea wants to, I gotta open the door for Sweet Pea. Be right back. Go ahead. Sorry. So, estai is your verb to be. It means he, she, or it will be. Is there any noun to start this sentence, though? Well, here's one. Phlipsis, it means suffering or oppression, and it's in the nominative, so maybe that's with how the sentence starts. So, suffering will be. Panty in the dative. So, why is it in the dative? Oh my goodness, now Columbus is having a hairball. This is ridiculous. I should have pressed paused. So panty is in the dative. Remember when we very, very first learned the dative, we learned that some things take the dative. Certain words cause what follows them to be in the dative. But we don't have that going on here. We just have a dative on its own, so we have to supply why it's in the dative. So remember I told you that if there's nothing else supplied, dative all by itself can take the sense of to something or for something. So I supplied for because it made more sense in English to me. Suffering will be to everyone or suffering will be for everything. or there will be suffering for or to everyone. I thought for made a bit more sense in English, so I translated for everyone. And this is describing more about this suffering. To agatho, kaito kako. So those are adjectives for good and bad. And they're with the dative definite article again, singular dative. So it could be to the good and to the bad. I chose for the good and for the bad. And those are singular. So I guess you could supply a noun in there for those adjectives. You could put for the good one and for the bad one. You could put for the good man and for the bad man because it's masculine. You could put person. It's up to you. But now I'm going to go through it again in greater detail for you. So this is how I would translate that sentence if I was given it. This is sort of the order I would do it in. First, you got the word pass. It's an adjective, and it's nominative, singular, masculine for all or every. So it's from pass-pass-a-pan, all or every. Remember, it's that 3-1-3 declension. When you see pass, either it goes with something else in the sentence, or it stands alone and you have to supply the noun for it. All Greek adjectives work that way. If they're with a noun and they match it in case, number, and gender, then great. You say every noun. If it's table, it's every table. If it's plural, tables, it's all the tables. But if you see no noun that matches it, then you have to use the case, number, and gender of pass-pass-a-pan and supply. If it's neuter, singular, maybe it goes with thing. If it's neuter plural, you can supply things. If it's masculine or feminine, then it's a human, and you can put person or people or ones or something like that. But that's not the case here. So the very first thing I did was I looked through the sentence to see, or I would do if I was trying to translate this, I looked through the sentence to see if there was anything else that was nominative, singular, masculine, and there was. So I put those together. Noose was also in nominative, singular, masculine. So past doesn't have to, you don't have to supply a noun. There is one. It's just a boring old adjective that means all or every. And because it's singular, it means every. So every mind. Next in the sentence, I would go to scate. The next phrase was en to scate. So I looked up, what is scate? Oh, it's a third declension noun. So looking at my third declension noun chart, I found out that it was in the dative singular, and it was neuter, and it means darkness. So I put little tabs, so I've got a yellow tab here. Let's look at the neuter, dative, singular neuter of the third declension. Yes, here it is. Can you see this chart? Here is your third declension chart. Do you see how I knew that this was dative and singular and neuter? Well, it's because I looked it up in the lexicon or the glossary, and I found out that this is how it declines. So here it is. It ended in A. So I knew that that was dative, singular, neuter. So then here I was stuck with something in the dative. Why is it in the dative? Do I have to supply to or for, or is there some other reason why it's in the dative? Looking for why it's in the dative, we don't have to look very far. En. En is a preposition that means in, and it takes the dative. So the only reason that's in the dative is because en takes the dative. And here's your definite article. So in the darkness. So every in the darkness mind. So that order is weird in English, so it's every mind in the darkness. So every mind that is in the darkness, what? Let's look for a verb. Aha, we find one. Ergazetai. Ergazetai. If you have your verb endings memorized, then you'll quickly know that's one of our deponent verbs. That's one of our verbs like erkamai. And this one happens to come from the deponent verb ergazomai, which means to work. But the ending tells us that it's a third person singular present. Well, that makes sense because it goes with mind. So every mind in the darkness, what's it verbing? It's working, works, or is working. It's in the present. Actually, the little blue tab goes to our deponent verb chart, so we can actually see how we see that. Does that work? There's your deponent chart. There's ruamai, the word we kind of use to practice deponents. Can you find it? Ergazetai? Aha. Ruetai, there's your ending. So we knew it was third person singular, present. So you can use those charts in the back of this book for your translations too. So works is the verb in this sentence. It's what the mind is doing. It works. What does it work? Panera. Paneros is an adjective that means evil. But what about this ending, panera? It's an adjective that means evil, but with that ending, it could either be, it's going to be neuter, it's plural, it could either be nominative or accusative, and it means evil. So I went with accusative because works is acting on it, works evil. And because it's neuter plural, you can provide a noun to describe more about this evil, works evil things. That's how I did the first part of the sentence. I got 3 more pages of this to go, only for those of you who really want to go through it. The next sentence on your test, same thing, started with pass, and I know from my pass chart, my 313 pass-pass-a-pan chart, that this is a nominative singular masculine version of pass. So because it's singular, it means every. If it were plural, it would mean all. So I look to see if anything else is nominative singular masculine. Once again, nous is there, nominative singular masculine. So I know we're talking about every mind. We've got de stuck in here. De means but, and it gets translated at the beginning of the sentence, but it's a postpositive word, which means it's too timid to go first. It always goes second. But you translate it at the first of the sentence. So it means but it's a soft but. It's not like Allah, which means but. It's more like a but that shows a gentle contrast with what came before, almost like it's just a Greek way of saying a new sentence is beginning. So some people don't translate it at all, but I do to show it's in the Greek. I show it in the English, especially on an exam. So but we've had every mind that's in the darkness works evil things, but we're going to have a contrast here. Every mind, where's this mind? Epi, to, ore. Okay, so what is ore? It was in your vocab. It's a hill or a mountain. And this, it's a noun. So we happen to know from our noun chart for the third declension nouns that are like this, it's a dative singular neuter. It's a dative singular neuter. We ask ourselves, why is it in the dative? Do I need to supply the word to or for, or is there some other reason why it's in the dative? Aha, it's the latter. Epi, to, ore. Epi is a preposition that can take a number of different cases, but if it takes the dative, it means on. We're on the basis of, but the basic meaning of epi plus the dative is on. So we don't need to do anything else weird with ore. We know why it's in the dative now. It's because of epi. So every mind on the mountain, Here's our verb, kaire. So kairo means I rejoice. So kaire means he, she, or it rejoices. Probably we're talking about the mind here. Every mind on the mountain rejoices or is rejoicing because it's in the plain old present. So, moving on. A question sentence. First word in the sentence was tis, and we know when we see the tis or t chart, anything in that chart that has an accent, it's going to be the question version. So it means who, which, or what. And I quickly look to the end of the sentence, and I also see you won't always have punctuation in ancient manuscripts, but in, for example, the critical edition of the New Testament or newer things, you will. So this is your question mark. So we know this is a question. It starts with who, which, or what, ends with a question mark. I looked for something else in the nominative. There's nothing. This is the way our question starts. So I looked for a verb. Aha, here's our verb, dexatai. That is a deponent verb ending. So etai, again, third person singular, but future, not present. Why? It's because after doing a little sleuthing, I saw in my lexicon or glossary that it came from decomai. So decomai means to receive, but dexetai, look how, the future adds a sigma at the end of the stem. Dec, this doesn't have a sigma, but if you say it, dex, it's k plus s. So the sigma is hidden in the X, letter X. So dexatai is the future of decomai. So he, she, or it will receive. So I guess if this is a question, it's probably about receiving, it's probably going to be translated who. Who will receive ta eleos. Well, there's a definite article, so we know this is a noun. We look it up in the glossary. We see, okay, it's a third declension noun. So that could go a couple of ways because it's neuter. And those neuters, the masculine and nominative, accusative and nominative endings are always the same in neuter. So this could be nominative or it could be accusative, but it's coming after a verb that's doing some action, so we're going to go with accusative. And we're going to say, who will receive the mercy? Oh, there's a little bit more here, talking more about that mercy. To, so we know from this definite article that it's genitive, masculine, singular. So that means this is going to be a noun, basileos. That's a noun that means king. That's in the, so of the king, it's in the genitive. So you supply, there's no other reason for this to be in the genitive, so you just supply the basic meaning of the genitive, which is of. And there's a definite article, so the. So who will receive the mercy of the king? And now our final sheet. This was the hardest sentence. But it's realistic because looking at ancient Greek texts, you will constantly find sentences where you have to do some fiddling with it to make it make sense in English. You can't translate it quite literally. So here's an example. I'm looking through my sentence. It doesn't start with a noun, but I look first to find a noun in the nominative to see if that's going to be the subject of my sentence. Well, there is one. Thlipsis. It's a noun in the nominative. It's singular and it's feminine, and it means suffering or oppression. So tentatively, I start my sentence with that noun, suffering or oppression, and then I look for a verb. What's it doing? Well, the verb I see is estai. We know that is from the verb to be, which is a weird one. You just have to memorize a whole chart. So we happen to know that estai is third person singular in the future of the verb to be. So he, she, or it will be. Well, probably it goes with suffering. Suffering will be, and then we have our past participle again, but it's in the dative singular. Why is it in the dative? And is it masculine or neuter? Because they're the same. Yeah. And so we figure out that maybe we have to supply, there's no reason for it to be in the dative, so maybe we have to supply the concept of for or to, because that's the basic concept of the dative. So tentatively, we do something like this. Suffering will be, do I say to everyone or to all? Well, singular, so I'm going to try and choose a singular meaning. I'm going to say to everyone or for everyone. So I've got suffering will be for everyone. That's not a great English sentence, so you could supply the word there. That's perfectly acceptable to say there will be suffering for everyone. That's more like how we would say it in English. So a natural translation could be there will be suffering for everyone. What else is in this sentence? Oh yeah, the second part of the sentence goes to agatho, kai, to kako. These are all datives again. To agatho, to kako, and these are adjectives. And so there's no noun they're not describing any noun, so you have to supply it. So you can either kind of leave it out like the Greek has and let it be implied in your head, to the good or for the good, and to the bad or for the bad. Or just, I guess you could just say the good and the bad and leave the dative totally out of it. Like, yeah, there will be suffering for everyone, the good and the bad. That would be all you need to do. So I put suffering will be, or there will be suffering for everyone, the good and the bad, or for the good and for the bad, or for the good person and for the bad person, I guess you could do. So there you have it. You had a really challenging translation on that test. You all got a good grade on that test. I was really pleased that the take-home went well. Now you kind of have practiced what your take-home final exam will be like. It will not be any more difficult than that. It'll just be longer. So in fact, some of it will be easier than that because it won't have weird word order or won't have anything in the sentence that you have to supply. So as of right now, we're going to learn a couple more things, but as of right now, you're basically ready for your final exam because you did well on this little take-home. So, on to participles. I hope you're revising participles because our next test is going to be on those, chapter 14. Bye for now. Thanks, everyone.